What's up, people? How's it going? We're ever closer to the trade deadline coming up next week in the NFL, and we've still got some stuff to look at here, some stuff to consider. And I'm just going to jump on over to the defensive side and start with the position of the most obvious need inside linebacker. You look at the Seahawks defense right now, it's playing well, pass rush is improving, secondary is playing great. Yeah, it's not perfect, but you look at those areas of the team and it feels like something is clicking, something is going well. But no matter what we do, no matter how good we play, there's going to be one thing on this defense that is going to be hard to completely get away from. Cody Barton is a starter. Cody Barton is, well, he's kind of had his starting role trimmed, but he's playing a lot. And there are definitely some players on this defense who are just kind of along for the ride, right? Guys like Quentin Jefferson, guys like, to a certain extent, maybe you would say Brian Monet outside of that one game. They're not doing a ton, they're just kind of there. Sometimes they're a positive, sometimes they're a negative. It feels kind of random. Yeah, we might want to consider improving on at least one of those areas if we're actually going to make a push for some kind of playoff run. So let's talk inside linebacker here. And remember, the goal is to get somebody who can start, somebody better than Cody Barton. I don't need another Cody Barton. I already have too many of those. So you look at free agency, there are some names, right? Blake Martinez, Anthony Hitchens, Donta Hightower, AJ Johnson is somebody I've talked about before. I remember that. Gerard Davis, too. Reggie Ragland, Alec Ogletree, he's been around a while. He's been a name. So you've got some guys who have a lot of NFL experience, guys who have done good things in the NFL, guys who have had good seasons before. But I think we're really starting to learn that at this linebacker position, if you're not one of the all time greats, once you lose even a little notch from your peak, you fall off a cliff very quickly. Like Blake Martinez is 28. That's not that old. But yet, he's gotten to the point where the Giants cut him because they'd rather save a couple $1 million than have him, and nobody will pick him up. And this was a guy who was close to leading the league in tackles a couple years ago for the Packers. So the fact that a lot of these guys are young doesn't mean what it should, unfortunately. They are available for a reason, and if you brought any of them in, I think the improvement over Cody Barton would either be minuscule or non existent. So let's try to hit the trade market instead. We got the big one. We got to talk about this one. He was crying in a press conference when he heard the Bears were starting to trade players. Roquan Smith. It seems like the Bears have to trade him because there's no way he's going to re-sign. If they use the franchise tag, then Roquan's going to hate them, and other players are going to lose their trust in them as a franchise. And they've already kind of implied they don't think he's all that. So Roquan Smith seems like he has to get traded. And this guy is kind of everything you could want in an inside linebacker for a 3-4. That's what he's been doing in Chicago. He's been in a Fangio defense. He makes plays in coverage. He's got 7 interceptions in his 5-year career, 4 years plus this season. He's got 16 and a half sacks. He's a really good pass rusher. He's made a couple all-pro teams. He's considered to be one of the best cover linebackers in the league. Great tackler. I think he leads the league in tackles and solo tackles right now. This is an elite inside linebacker. He's only 25. Now, the issue with Roquan Smith, number one, and this is kind of a joke thing. Let me be clear about that. PFF hates him. I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why PFF never gives this guy any credit, but every year he's like, they think he's like well below average, like replacement level. I don't know what that is. The real problem is the contract. So you would inherit the final year of his rookie contract, which is the 5th-year option, which is about 9.7 million, and it's all base, so I believe you would inherit all of it. So basically, if you trade for Roquan Smith, you're going to be paying his rookie 5th-year contract out in full. Now that's fine, but if you trade for Roquan, you are probably looking at extending him. He wants to get paid. He deserves to get paid after what he's done so far in the NFL. I mean, you look at his stats, you look at what he's done during his time in the NFL. He clearly deserves a contract. And there's every reason to believe that contract would be in the area of 4 years, 100 million. And if you trade for him and he knows he has you over a barrel, that could be 4 years, 110 million. Now, I've said it before, I've outlined this before. We can afford to do that, but that's contingent on some things that may not necessarily be true in a year or even in 6 months. It's contingent on us not spending big on a quarterback. That could change. It's contingent on us not spending big at edge rusher. That could change. So, bottom line is, Roquan Smith, he's certainly the prize pig, but it's going to cost a lot. You better be ready to commit to winning a Super Bowl next year or the year after before that cap hit balloons up. So, you're probably looking at like a second round pick or third rounder plus for Roquan. So he's the most expensive option. If you want to go cheaper, one of the guys you could get is Myles Jack. He's a linebacker for the Steelers. He's been a Jaguars linebacker previously. He's played most every game in his career. He's a great athlete. He's had 3 years with 100 plus tackles. His numbers are really good so far for Pittsburgh overall. He's an interesting prospect here. I believe that he can do the things that we would need a inside linebacker to do in this defense. His cover numbers have mostly been decent-ish. 2019, not great, but overall his cover numbers have been pretty decent. Certainly beats the heck out of anything that Brooks or Barton gives us, at least. So Myles Jack, interesting. PFF also thinks he's a good player. They have him as a good. They have him graded well through week 7. I think his 2021 was really poorly graded, but this year he's been good according to them. His contract is 2 years, 16 million. If the Steelers trade him, they're only saving $1.5 million. So you may have to give up like a fourth round pick, a real asset to get Myles Jack, maybe even a flat third rounder. I don't know. However, they are saving significant money in 2023 because his contract runs through 2023. You'd be taking $8 million off their books in 2023 if you trade for him. So he might also be a guy they give away. I think it's contingent on the Steelers losing this Sunday to be willing to move him. So we'll see what they do on Sunday. Devin Bush, the other Steelers linebacker, is also of note. This is a guy who is relatively young. He's only 24. He's in his 4th year, so this is the last year of his rookie deal. He got off to a great start, almost won Rookie of the Year in 2019. Great rookie season for him. And ever since then, it's just been a slog. I get the sense the Steelers don't like him. I think that fan base doesn't really like him very much anymore. He just hasn't looked the same since he missed all those games in 2020. And given the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers did not use their 5th-year option, given that they haven't extended him, it's pretty clear to me they're planning on letting him go as soon as this season is over. So maybe they're willing to trade him for like a 6th-round pick just to get something. Now, with all that being said, it needs to be understood that Devin Bush, as of right now, not a good player. He was not a good player in Pittsburgh except for his rookie year. As of right now, he is a player with talent. He was a 1st-round pick who might need a change of scenery. You are hoping that Seattle is that change of scenery. But it would be cheap. You would inherit a little bit of money this year, so maybe it's worth considering. Maybe. But that one is more along the lines of a trade that could get you somebody who's no better than Coach. Marginally better. If you want somebody who's definitely going to be better, Shaq Thompson might be more your speed. Carolina Panther, they're a team that is fire sailing as is, and they're trying to get massive value for their studs like Brian Burns and DJ Moore. So maybe you should hit them up and ask about one of their depressed assets, like Shaq Thompson. Little bit of an older player, little bit of a veteran, not a super duper star anymore. Was never really any kind of a superstar, but at one point he was a really good player. Maybe you call them up and say, hey, 5th-round pick. Take it or leave it. They might say yes just to be rid of him because he's got a big contract and he doesn't fit in with their current timeline. He's been a good player the last 3 years. He's had over 100 tackles each of those seasons. Decent pass rusher, makes some plays in coverage, has played in a 3-4 defense before as an inside linebacker. His coverage metrics are actually quite good. 2021, his QB rating allowed was 68. It's never been higher than 96 since PFR started keeping track. So, pretty solid in coverage, pretty decent tackler, just a good all around athlete as well. I mean, we remember Shaq Thompson. He played for the Huskies. We have a pretty good idea of what he is as a player now. That was a long time ago, but we still have an idea of the kind of player we are dealing with here. PFF thinks he's having a good year so far. They have him graded around 68. 2021, they gave him a good grade as well. So this is a guy who, according to the people who watch every play and do this as their job, is a very good linebacker. And you look at his contract, and it's not the greatest contract in the world, but you can see why Carolina would want to be rid of it, and you can see why it still might be worth it for Seattle. Now, because of the way the contract is structured in terms of dead money, if the Panthers trade him now, they're only saving $1.5 million in 2022. They're still paying most of his money, but 2023 they'll be saving significantly. The dead cap hit goes down from 24.5 to less than 11.5. So they may prefer to give him away instead of spending that kind of money on him. That's a massive cap hit in 2023 for a linebacker on a team that is clearly going to be rebuilding. So maybe they just give him away just so they don't have to give him that money. So you take on the 1.1 million or so, maybe it would be like $1.5 million in 2022. You take on the 12.36 million in 2023. That would be fully non-guaranteed, and you go from there. It seems like it could work. So those are the linebackers I think the Seahawks could consider trading for. They're all appealing in their own way. Roquan because he's elite, Jack and Shaq because they're good and they're really good athletes, and Devin Bush because he's going to be super cheap and he's going to be somebody who might need a change of scenery to unleash what he was supposed to be coming into the NFL. Devin Bush was a top 10 pick. It hasn't worked in Pittsburgh at all, but it could work somewhere else. But other than that, I'm not seeing much of anything that I consider to be better than what you already have with Barton. Maybe it's a tiny bit better, like I said, but at that point, you may as well bob around in free agency, I feel like. So these are four guys. I think they'd all, three of them would definitely be upgrades over Barton. The other guy would probably be at worst as good, and at best he realizes his potential a little bit. So let me know what you guys think. What would you do? What would you give up? Is there another player that I'm not thinking of that you think might shake available? Another inside linebacker who could maybe replace Barton? Let me know. All right, I will see you guys later today. Peace out, go Hawks. And yeah, let me know what you think.